Being alive is a unique opportunity for accomplishment, growth, and happiness. But many people seem stuck in a grey day-to-day routine that they never really wanted. They seem to waste their life away, unable to do anything about it. As far as we know, we only have this one life, this one chance. So we should strive to live the life we actually want. But how can you achieve your goals and live a meaningful life in the way you want to live it? Well, a very simple but often completely overlooked first step is to figure out what you actually want. Listen to this brief clip of John Deloney and Jordan Peterson here.
I've rarely sat down across from somebody and had them be able to articulate, what do you actually want? They cannot answer that question, and they fill it with addictions, they fill it with hobbies, they fill it with dopamine chase, they fill it with so much stuff, and nobody can answer that question. What do you want? Because we just don't have a culture that has a shared vision of where we're headed. We have a culture of you're hurting and somebody else's fault, and let's start pointing fingers. And man, we've got to circle the wagons on a shared vision moving forward. Yeah. Because there's what do you want? No, that's not a question anybody asks. It's what do I don't want, and why am I feeling just uncomfortable? It's because of them. It's because of him. It's because of her.
Then if it's what you don't want, you're driven by negative emotion. Eh?
That's right. If you're running from, not to.
If you're driven by a vision, that's positive emotion, because approaching something positive in a visionary manner generates positive emotion. If you're only fleeing from things you don't want, then you're constantly in a state of anxiety and depression.
And be very honest here. Is this you? Are you driven by things that you don't want and keep running away from them to try to avoid them? If this is you, you should do two things. First, figure out what you actually want for yourself. And we'll talk more about that in this video. And second, resolve all those negative emotions and feelings inside of you that you are running away from. And I'll talk more about that at the end of this video as well. But going back to the first point, it's absolutely crucial to figure out and understand what you want for yourself. Not for your family, not for society, not for friends, not because of a shallow need that you may have to impress someone, but what do you actually want for your life, for yourself? How do you want your life to actually look like for yourself, so that at the end of it you can say, yes, this was worth living without any regrets. But this is not as easy as it may or may not sound. Let's listen to what Jordan Peterson says here.
Nothing that you want will manifest itself unless you aim for it. And you won't aim for it unless you know what it is. And you won't know what it is unless you ask yourself. And then you might say, well, why don't you ask yourself? And the answer is, well, maybe no one ever explained to you that you needed to, which is a crucial issue. And then maybe you don't also trust yourself. You know, because you might think, well, if I let myself know what I wanted, given my bloody track record, I would do everything I could to screw it up. So I'll just keep myself opaque to myself so that I don't fail at something that's truly important. And then I can always regale with myself with the idea that, well, I didn't succeed, but I didn't really try. Had I really tried, I might have succeeded. Whereas if you let yourself know what you want and then you try, you also set the preconditions for failure.
And this is huge, and I see this basically with all of my clients as well. As long as you don't specify what you want, you are safe because you can't fail. But let's think about that for just a moment. By doing that, by not setting any goals, you basically rob yourself of the opportunity to live the life that you actually want to live, to really take your shot at this one chance of life. Sure, if you set goals, failure might become an option, but it's still better than never even having the chance of achieving what you want. Another important aspect is that achieving something rarely feels as good as you expect it to feel. Listen to this.
Here's what I'm seeing across the country. I thought it would feel different when I finally got that associate vice president job.
Yeah, right.
I thought I would feel a certain way when I got a car. I thought if I could just get her to date me, I would feel a certain way.
And there are a few things to say here. First, often people just get things because they think they want them, because someone else expected of them. Something very common for that is, for example, that society tells you should get a house and a car. And if you really want that for yourself, that's great and amazing. But for most people it looks like this. They work, then they get the house, then they get the car, and they maybe feel a short-term high. Yes, that's great, I finally achieved it. But then they fall down again and it feels a bit meaningless because they never actually wanted a house or a car for themselves. At least not in the way they got it now. Another aspect is that you will never get to permanent, and I mean everlasting happiness by achieving something. Let's listen to Jordan Peterson here.
Okay, so the first thing is that the probability that you'll be happy because you've accomplished something in any permanent sense is virtually zero. And the reason
yes, thank you for saying that.
Well, the reason for that isn't what positive emotion is for. Positive emotion is to indicate that you're making progress towards a valued goal.
Yes.
Now that's
the driver, right? Not the finish line.
Exactly. Well, and that's actually pharmacologically separate, right? Because a satiation reward, which would be the accomplishment of something, calms you and stops that program from running. So, for example, once you've become vice president, if that was your goal, then the whole pursuing vice president program comes to a halt. Now, the problem with that is it leaves you without a goal, and it also leaves empty space, which you immediately have to fill. And so often people feel disquiet because now they don't know what to do, and they miss that rush because they're no longer pursuing something. And so it's very important to know that positive emotion is experienced in relationship to a valued goal.
And this is absolutely crucial to understand. The positive emotion comes through the progress toward a goal. It's a driver that pushes you forward in the pursuit of something. It's not an end state. So when you actually achieve something, you achieved it. So there's no need for this driver of happiness anymore. And many people fall into a very big hole after they achieved something great. Maybe you have experienced that for yourself. You work for something, for a big goal, maybe even for years. And once you achieve it, yes, it feels great for a brief moment, but then you feel kind of lost and a little bit of empty because now your purpose is gone, and with it your drive and your willingness to work and pursue something. You kind of need to find yourself again. So what to do about this? Well, the first step is to be aware of it. Andrew Huberman talks about the neuroscience behind all of this in his podcast. So if you want me to break that down as well, let me know down below in the comments. It's very interesting. But by knowing that this will happen and by being aware that quite literal, the way is the goal, you can already brace yourself for the low and the emptiness that you will feel after you've achieved something. Another thing that you can do is to shift the way you think about setting goals for yourself. Let's listen to what Jordan says in this next clip here.
The highest order goal has to be something like an approach rather than a final state, right? Because you might say, well, I want to be the guy who listens.
The approach never ends.
That's right. Well,
let me say that again. The highest order goal should be an approach. And if that sounds a bit too abstract, let me give you a few examples. The approach could be, I want to be someone who always confronts their fears. Or I want to be in constant pursuit of self-development and using every opportunity to grow. Or maybe I want to be someone who always listens to every side and tries to understand them, especially when I disagree with them. Or I want to be a reliable person who is always true to my word. There are many things that are basically ideals that you can strive for throughout your entire life as your highest order goal. And this is something very good because it gives you constant pursuit of greatness, which is in itself very fulfilling, as we established before. Because happiness comes through the pursuit of something and making progress toward a goal, not through achieving it. And of course, just as Jordan said, under that highest order approach goal, you can still have your other goals that are more tangible in nature. But if you always strive for this highest order goal, you may fall into a slight hole when you achieve something, something tangible that's normal, but you will not lose yourself because you know, hey, I am someone who strives for greatness in this area, and this is basically my life's pursuit. Now, what can you do when you're in a state where you're overwhelmed by everything? Where you can just think about what you don't want because you're overwhelmed by negative emotions and feelings. I break down another conversation of Jordan where he talks about exactly that in the video right over there. So be sure to check it out.